England, 1816. The grand ballroom of Greyhaven Estate shimmered beneath the glow of 1,000 candles, their light reflected in polished floors and gilded mirrors. Music drifted through the air, elegant and steady, yet beneath its grace lay a tension no one could quite name. Lady Catherine Peden paused at the entrance, her hand lifting to adjust a pearl hairpin, a simple gift from her father on her 22nd birthday. She drew a careful breath before stepping inside, unaware that the night would undo a year of healing in a single heartbeat. The past year had changed her. It had broken her, shaped her, and rebuilt her into someone stronger. When Edmund Ashford, the Duke of Silvermere, vanished from her life without explanation, she had believed the pain would never end. There were weeks she barely ate, nights she cried until dawn, days she refused to leave her room. She had thought herself ruined beyond repair. Yet she survived, and tonight she returned to society not as a fragile girl, but as a woman who had learned how to stand alone. "Lady Catherine," Lady Rothel exclaimed warmly, clasping her hands with delight. "How wonderful to see you looking so well. Your gown is exquisite." Catherine smiled with practiced ease. "Thank you for your kind invitation. Your spring ball is always the highlight of the season." Her pale blue silk gown whispered as she moved through the room. Familiar faces greeted her with polite nods, admiration clear in their eyes. The orchestra began a Mozart piece she remembered too well from happier days. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing footman, though she did not drink it. "May I have the honor of this dance, Lady Catherine?" She turned to find James Howard, the second son of the Earl of Bainbridge. His kind eyes and gentle smile had been a quiet comfort these past months. "With pleasure, Mr. Howard," she replied, setting the glass aside. As they joined the other couples, Catherine felt a small surge of pride. She had survived. The woman who once believed her heart beyond repair was gone. In her place stood someone steadier, someone guarded. "You seem in good spirits this evening," James observed as they moved through the steps. "I have much to be thankful for," she replied. She had just completed a turn when the music faltered, or perhaps it only seemed so. A hush spread through one corner of the ballroom. Whispers rippled like a sudden breeze. The Duke of Silvermere had arrived. Catherine's fingers tightened around James's hand, though her face remained calm. Edmund stood at the entrance, tall and commanding, dressed impeccably in dark evening wear. His chestnut hair was slightly longer than fashion allowed. On his arm rested the Duchess of Harrington, radiant in crimson silk and diamonds, beautiful, worldly, and everything Catherine believed herself not to be. "Are you unwell?" James asked quietly. "Merely a passing chill," Catherine lied, forcing herself to continue the dance. She would not look at Edmund. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her falter. But fate was unkind. As the dance ended and James led her from the floor, Catherine found herself directly in Edmund's line of sight. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and everything else faded. The music dulled, voices blurred. For one suspended breath, only they existed. His composed face cracked for an instant. Pain, regret, something raw and unmistakable. Catherine felt her defenses tremble. With every ounce of dignity she possessed, she turned away. She accepted another dance, then another. She smiled, she spoke lightly, she pretended. Yet her heart betrayed her, pounding wildly in her chest. Across the room, Edmund stood unmoving. The Duchess spoke to him, but her words went unheard. Catherine looked different now, poised and confident. But it was the light in her eyes, once meant only for him, now given to others, that struck him hardest. "Your Grace," the Duchess said sharply. "You promised refreshment." "Of course," he replied automatically, though his gaze lingered on Catherine's retreating form. Lord Rothel intercepted him moments later. "Silvermere, good to see you. Wasn't certain you'd attend this season." Quote, "I've been occupied," Edmund answered shortly. "I see the Willower girl is here," Lord Rothel added knowingly. "Thought that might interest you." "Lady Catherine and I are merely acquaintances," Edmund said stiffly. Lord Rothel raised an eyebrow. "Indeed." She seems quite taken with young Howard. Edmund's jaw tightened as he watched James return to Catherine's side. Across the room, Catherine's younger sister, Helena, hurried to her. "He's here," she whispered. "And he keeps looking at you." "Let him," Catherine replied calmly. "It matters not." Helena frowned. "You don't mean that." "Especially after everything," Catherine said softly. As the evening wore on, Catherine and Edmund moved around each other like distant stars, always aware, never close. She laughed at James's jokes. Edmund escorted the Duchess with practiced courtesy. The performance was flawless, until the Duchess steered him deliberately toward Catherine. "Lady Catherine," the Duchess purred, "how delightful to see you again." Catherine curtsied perfectly. "Your Grace." The Duchess placed a possessive hand on Edmund's arm. "The Duke has been kind enough to escort me this season." Edmund cleared his throat. "Lady Catherine, Lady Helena." His voice sent an unwelcome shiver through Catherine. Sensing the tension, James stepped forward with an introduction. Helena leaned in to whisper, "Breathe. You look as though you might shatter." Catherine felt it was true. "If you'll excuse me," she said suddenly, "I require some air." She fled to the terrace, the cool night offering brief relief. Her hands gripped the stone railing as she whispered, "Fool." A year of healing undone in a single glance. She did not hear the door open. "Catherine." She closed her eyes, then turned with composure. "Your Grace. I believe your companion is waiting. I needed to speak with you." After a year of silence, she laughed bitterly. "I think not." "Please," he said, and something in his voice made her pause. "What could you possibly say?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I wish to inquire after your well-being." "My well-being?" Her composure cracked. "You vanished without a word." "I know I have no right," he said quietly, "but I have thought of you often." "How flattering," she replied coldly. "You have changed," he murmured. "Yes," Catherine said, "I have." Silence pressed between them. "The Duchess appears a suitable match," Catherine said at last. "I wish you happiness." "We are not engaged," Edmund said quickly. "It matters not," she replied, turning away. As she passed, he caught her wrist gently. The first touch in a year sent shock through them both. "Catherine," he said, voice rough. "I made a terrible mistake." "Yes," she answered softly. "You did." She pulled free and returned to the ballroom, leaving Edmund alone with the weight of his regret, unaware that this unfinished moment would soon demand a reckoning neither of them could escape. The morning after Lady Rothel's ball dawned grey and still, as though London itself were holding its breath. Catherine sat in the morning room of the Peaton townhouse, her teacup untouched before her. Helena stood near the window, unfolding the latest society paper with far too much interest. "Lady Catherine Peaton has returned triumphantly to the season," Helena read aloud, unable to hide her amusement. Her appearance at Lady Rothel's ball drew many admirers, including the eligible Mr. James Howard. Catherine closed her eyes briefly. They never tire of speculation. Helena continued, her tone sharpening. Also in attendance was the Duke of Silvermere, escorting the Duchess of Harrington. Observers noted a curious tension when former acquaintances encountered one another. "Vultures," Catherine muttered. "Every last one." Helena folded the paper and studied her sister. "What did he say to you on the terrace?" "Nothing of consequence." Helena raised an eyebrow. "It did not look like nothing." Before Catherine could answer, the butler entered, carrying a silver tray. "A delivery for you, my lady." Upon it rested a small package wrapped in brown paper tied with string, accompanied by a sealed note. Catherine's breath caught as she recognized the handwriting. Elegant, decisive, Edmund. "Shall I open it?" Helena asked eagerly. "No," Catherine said quickly, taking the package. "That will be all." Once alone, she broke the seal. "Catherine, words cannot express my regret for the pain I caused you. Please accept this not as recompense, which I know is impossible, but as a symbol of a truth I was too cowardly to face. Yours, though I have no right to be, Edmund." Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped the parcel. Inside lay a small, leather-bound book of poetry, the very collection they had once discussed during long walks in Hyde Park. A pressed forget-me-not marked a familiar page. Helena sighed dreamily. How terribly romantic. It changes nothing, Catherine said firmly, though she placed the book carefully in her desk drawer instead of discarding it. That afternoon, James Howard called. His manner was polite, yet uncharacteristically nervous. I will speak plainly, he said. I admire you greatly. I know your heart has known disappointment. I ask only that you do not dismiss the possibility of something steadier. Catherine felt a tightening in her chest. James was everything Edmund had not been. Kind, open, safe. You honor me, she said honestly, but I cannot encourage hopes I am uncertain I can fulfill. James nodded with quiet dignity. Then we remain friends. Perhaps time will decide the rest. That evening, Catherine's father summoned her to his study. His expression was grave. The Duke of Silvermere visited today, he said. Catherine stiffened. And what did he want? He asked my permission to court you properly. Her disbelief was sharp. After abandoning me without a word? I reminded him of that, her father replied. And I cautioned him that you are no longer unguarded. What did you tell him? That the decision was yours. The following evening, at a musical gathering in Mayfair, Edmund appeared again, this time alone. Catherine felt his presence before she saw him. Their eyes met briefly across the room, and she looked away. The Duchess of Harrington approached Catherine shortly after, her smile sharp as glass. You've been much discussed of late. I imagine so, Catherine replied coolly. Do not misunderstand, the Duchess said softly. Edmund's attention toward you is nothing more than nostalgia. Then you need not concern yourself with me, Catherine answered evenly. The Duchess's composure cracked for a moment. He will be mine. Before Catherine could respond, Edmund appeared. His gaze fell to where the Duchess's hand gripped Catherine's arm. Is there a problem? He asked quietly. Moments later, Catherine escaped to the library, heart racing. Edmund followed. I went to your father, he said urgently. I must explain. Explain what? Catherine demanded. That you disappeared because you cared too deeply? I cannot tell you everything yet, he said, but I swear I left to protect you. Her laughter was bitter. Protection that nearly destroyed me. Before he could respond, James Howard entered, concern etched on his face. Catherine seized the moment to leave. Yet curiosity gnawed at her resolve. 2 days later, she met Edmund in Hyde Park. There, beneath a quiet sky, he told her the truth. Of his father's suspicious death, of a powerful man he believed responsible, of threats, of danger, of the reason he pushed her away. She listened in stunned silence. You should have trusted me, she said at last. I know, he replied, and I will regret that choice all my life. He showed her proof. Letters. Records. Evidence of betrayal and crime. For the first time, Catherine saw not a heartless duke, but a man haunted by fear and guilt. I believe you, she said finally, but trust is harder than belief. I will earn it, he vowed. Days later, Edmund invited her family to his country estate. Catherine hesitated, then agreed. She needed to see who he was beyond words. At Silvermere Court, she saw a different Edmund, a man devoted to his tenants, a steward of his land, compassionate, tireless, honest. Each day softened her anger, each evening chipped away at her defenses. Yet danger loomed. The man Edmund had exposed was on trial. Accusations flew. The Duchess circled like a wounded predator. When news arrived that the trial demanded Edmund's presence in London, the fragile peace shattered. As they prepared to return, Catherine stood alone by the lake, watching the water ripple in the fading light. She knew the hardest test was still ahead. Trust, once broken, demanded more than explanations. It demanded courage. And she was no longer certain which frightened her more. Trusting Edmund again, or walking away forever. The answer awaited her in London, along with truth still unspoken, choices yet to be made, and a heart that refused to be silent. London welcomed them back with noise, curiosity, and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The moment Catherine's carriage stopped before the Peaton townhouse, she knew society had already decided her fate for her. Whispers followed her everywhere. Invitations arrived daily. Every hostess wanted her present, especially if the Duke of Silvermere might also attend. The trial dominated conversation. Edmund spent long hours with his solicitors, and in court, his face drawn with strain. Catherine saw him only briefly between obligations, yet each meeting carried a quiet intensity. They spoke little of feelings. Words felt too fragile now. Everything rested on what came next. The verdict arrived on a clear morning. Guilty. Victor Herove was condemned for fraud and embezzlement, his sentence long and final. Later that same day, Edmund sought Catherine out, his composure barely holding. "There was more," he said quietly as they walked through the park. "New testimony. My father's death was no accident." Catherine stopped. "What do you mean?" "A groom was paid to weaken his saddle," Edmund said, voice tight. "Herove wanted to silence him." Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. "So it was murder." "Justice came too late," Edmund replied, grief shadowing his eyes. "But it came." She took his hands without thinking. In that moment, she understood the weight he had carried alone, the fear that drove him to push her away. For the first time, her anger loosened its grip. "You should never have faced this alone," she said softly. "I won't again," he answered. The Duchess of Harrington did not take the verdict quietly. She returned to society like a storm, spreading venom and half-truths. She claimed Edmund had misled her, that Catherine had schemed her way back into his favor. Catherine endured it all with dignity, refusing to engage. The confrontation came at Lady Winchester's grand dinner. The room glittered with expectation. When Edmund entered beside Catherine, the silence was immediate. The Duchess stood rigid across the room, her smile thin and dangerous. During the evening, Edmund asked Catherine for a walk in the garden. Away from listening ears, he stopped beneath an ancient elm. "I cannot ask lightly," he said. "I have failed you once. I will not do so again. But I need to know if you can ever trust me fully." Catherine met his gaze, seeing not a duke, but a man stripped bare by truth. "I need one promise," she said. "No secrets, no decisions made without me." "You have it," Edmund said without hesitation. "Always." He knelt then, the world narrowing to that single moment. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a sapphire ring that caught the moonlight. "Catherine Elizabeth Beaton," he said steadily, "I loved you when I had no courage to protect that love properly. I love you now with honesty, humility, and every intention of standing beside you. Will you be my wife?" Tears blurred her vision, but her voice did not waver. "Yes, I will." Joy broke through him like sunlight after a storm. When he rose, she rested her forehead against his, the past finally loosening its hold. The announcement the following evening sent society into delighted chaos. Congratulations poured in. Smiles turned knowing. Even the most skeptical conceded defeat. James Howard came to her quietly. "I wish you happiness," he said sincerely. "You have chosen with your whole heart." "Thank you," Catherine replied, emotion thick in her voice. "You helped me find my strength." He bowed and walked away with grace, leaving no bitterness behind. The wedding took place at Silvermere Court in autumn, beneath golden trees and clear skies. The estate gathered to celebrate, tenants and nobility alike. Catherine walked toward Edmund without fear this time, her steps steady, her heart certain. Their vows were simple, honest, earned. Years passed. Silvermere Court flourished under their shared care. A school rose near the village. A small hospital followed, laughter-filled halls once quiet. Children's footsteps echoed where sorrow once lived. One morning, Catherine found Edmund in the nursery, holding their infant son, while their daughter proudly presented a wooden horse. "For him," she explained seriously, "so he can ride one day." Edmund accepted it with solemn gratitude. Catherine watched them, her heart full beyond measure. Love had tested them, pain had shaped them, trust had been rebuilt not through promises, but through choice. That evening, as they stood together overlooking the lake, Edmund drew her close. "I choose you," he said softly. "And I choose you," Catherine answered, as she always did. Not because the past was perfect, but because together they had learned how to face it. And that, she knew, was the truest kind of love.